Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Danielle Fisher, and I'm the event manager here at Eco Canada. And today's session is called Eco Canada and RRU, a partnership for environmental solutions, SPCC and MEP.
Daniel, do you think we have enough letters in there?
I think you probably do.
All will be revealed.
Before we start, I would like to take a moment to recognize the traditional Indigenous lands where Eco Canada's office is based in Calgary. At Eco Canada, we're committed to working towards respectful acknowledgement, collaboration, and reconciliation with Indigenous peoples across Canada. This starts with acknowledging our honor and privilege to live and work within the Treaty 7 territory. Today, we're presenting from the city of Calgary, home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. We would also like to take this time to acknowledge the traditional territories and oral practices of the Niitsitapi, home of the Blackfoot Confederacy, which includes the Siksika, the Piikani, and the Kainai First Nations, and the Tsuut'ina and Gidstoni, which include the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations. Before we start, there are a few housekeeping guidelines for today's session to ensure that everyone can enjoy and participate in our session effectively. All participants are muted, so please check your audio settings to ensure that you can hear us properly. If you're experiencing any technical issues, please use the question box and select Eco Canada, the organizer, and I will do all that I can to resolve the issue. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be made available on demand to you within the next 24 hours. Everyone who registered for the webinar will receive an email with a link to the video. Any questions that you have about the presentation or today's topic can be submitted through the chat box or question box. We will have dedicated time during the presentation to answer any questions from the audience. Finally, we really want to know what you think about our webinars and how we can keep improving. You'll be sent a short survey after the webinar ends. Please let us know what you think or if you have any comments or suggestions about the webinar. Eco Canada's vision is to build the world's leading environmental workforce. Eco Canada seeks to help environmental workers succeed at each step of their career journey. To do this, Eco Canada has developed programs tailored to individuals at different stages of their career. For those looking to enter the environmental workforce, Eco Canada provides training through the BEAR program and accreditation for environmental programs at post-secondary institutions. Eco Canada also provides opportunities for new workers to break into the environmental sector through wage funding for co-op students and recent post-secondary graduates. For those already employed as environmental workers, Eco Canada provides the environmental professional and environmental professional in training certifications and EPT students. Lastly, Eco Canada provides opportunities for those with vast experience as environmental workers to provide guidance and direction to ECO's products and programs through advisory committees and emeritus memberships. Now I'd like to introduce you to our speakers. First up, we have Dr. Leslie King. Professor King is the director for the Canadian Centre for Environmental Education and the program head for MA, MSc in Environmental Practice and GC Science and Policy of Climate Change at Royal Roads University. We will also be hearing from Dr. Robert Newell. Dr. Newell is the Canada Research Chair, Tier 2 in Climate Change, Biodiversity and Sustainability, and an Associate Professor in the School of Environment and Sustainability at RRU. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Daniel. I was wincing because of all the acronyms that we throw about so blithely. I will try to make those make some sense to all of you. I'm Leslie King, and I'm the program head of the programs that we're going to be talking about today, as well as a couple of others. So up on your screen, you will see GC. That means Graduate Certificate in the Science and Policy of Climate Change, affectionately known as SPCC, which is why you got that earlier, and also the Master of Arts and Master of Science in Environmental Practice. And Rob teaches it primarily in the science and policy of climate change, but we're both professors in the School of Environment and Sustainability. So you can ask us questions about anything to do with the school and our programs. I would also like to add that Rob, Angie, who is lurking, not obviously on the site, but will answer questions, and I are grateful to be able to live, learn, and work on the unceded traditional territories of the Lekwungen peoples. And those are the Esquimalt and Songhees First Nations. And we're really partners in education in this land because this is their land. So in some ways, they are the landlords of Royal Roads University. So I'm delighted to acknowledge them. Okay, Daniel, next slide, please. I've done that. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about Royal Roads, not a lot. This is the castle, which I sort of cringe when I see the castle as this bastion of colonialism. But it's really where a lot of our offices are, and it was given to us with the land. But it's right on the ocean, and it has a fabulous old growth and second growth forests with trails running through them. Our programs are entirely online, so the students don't see a lot of this spectacular campus, and instead they see a lot of their computers. But many come back for graduation, I'm delighted to say. So I hope that anyone here who takes our programs will remember that and come back, because this will be your university and your campus. Okay, so we're going to have questions at the end, but please don't hesitate to interrupt me with questions when you have them. And so you don't need to wait till the end. But Royal Roads is a special kind of university. It's very applied, and we make a point of being very interactive with our students. And we also like to interact with your lives and to basically recognize that you have lots of qualifications for academic world based on other things that you've done in your life. So this is a very different university, and one which is highly skilled at online learning. And the programs we're talking about today are part of that right from the beginning, well before the pandemic. In our 25 years of life, we've been doing online education in a very interactive way, where the students interact with each other and with their professors. So it is not a lonely, isolated experience to do online courses at Royal Roads. Okay, Daniel, next slide, please. So these are all some great boasting about Royal Roads. I won't go into any of those in detail, other than to stress that our programs all relate to leadership and innovation. And we are a change maker campus, and I'll get to that in a minute. Next slide, please. We're interested in education for change. The Changemaker Education Ashoka U designation is only given to about, I think, 6 universities in Canada, and we are one of them. And so we're committed to educating change makers. I hope that's everybody on the call. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the programs. First of all, the Master of Arts and the Master of Science in Environmental Practice. These are really one program, but the credential really depends on what you've done before coming into the program. While there's quite a bit of science and quite a bit of arts, I like all the students to have both. And so they do in this program. It's a very applied program. We have a lot of students in this program who are mid-career professionals, also at any stage in their career from beginning to near the end. Next slide, please. So the goal of the program is to provide flexible graduate education and emphasis on the flexible. In this program, you can you can really focus what you want to do on your interests in environment. There are a set of courses, but with lots of choice within those. And within the courses, you can follow your particular interest. Anyway, flexible, and you can do it in your own time. um, and that's the best part of it. You can work on weekends or the evenings if you're working. And the program is really designed to accommodate the schedules of working professionals and people with families who are not terribly mobile and cannot come to a campus. Anyway, graduate education for highly skilled environmental professionals seeking upgrading or advanced credentials, leading to a range of environmental leadership careers, etc. It's a fully online, 30 credits, part-time course. It's okay, Daniel, we can move along there. Next slide, please. Yeah. So it's a fully online course. And when could you go back one, please? Thanks. It's 30 credits part-time. And as I said, it's flexible. The program, you can take one course a semester, or you can take 3 courses a semester if you like, depending on how fast you want to finish and how busy you are in the other parts of your life. So it's normally completed in 2 years, maybe just over 2, but up to 5 and even 7 years to complete. And of course, we're partners with Eco Canada. So the program aligns with the Eco Canada occupational standards and prepares students for the environmental professional certification. And sort of a side benefit of the program is that it promotes online skills and competencies that are increasingly in demand in the workplace. Next slide, please. At the end of the program, the students choose either a research paper or a practicum to complete the program. The research paper is very much decided by you. It's what your interests are and what you would like to research and write about. The practicum gives you an opportunity for real world experience in an organization. And many MEP students have already jobs in the sector, so they prefer to do the research paper. But others, particularly people who are just breaking in or transitioning into the environmental field, like to take the practicum so that they can establish a network in the field and get started on a new career. Another interesting aspect of this program is the opportunity to take up to 3 courses at the University of Denver. So if any of you are interested in transboundary environmental problems, it's really fun to take those courses from Denver because you get the US perspective. Not everybody does, but some people really like it. Also, I think one of the most valuable things about this program is that you can include the graduate certificate in science and policy of climate change as part of the MEP program. So that's 3 courses that you can count towards your master's degree, but you can also get the credential of the certificate in science and policy of climate change. Pretty good deal. There are a couple of other programs at the university, graduate certificates, and Rob will tell you about one of them in which he is involved, that you can also count the credit towards your MEP. So that's a really good wrinkle where you get 2 credentials for the price of 1, basically. Thanks. Next slide, please. Okay, the graduate certificate in the science and policy and climate change. I'm very, very proud of this program. I've been trying to create a program like this for a very long time throughout my career. And we finally got it off the ground with this one. And it's a great program. Next slide, please. This is a 9-credit program, so it's 3 courses in partnership with Eco Canada. It's entirely online. It can be taken as a standalone certificate or part of the MEP. And the courses are also available as electives for a lot of different programs at the university. Next slide, please. Okay, who is it for? Environmental professionals with undergraduate degrees who want to move into the burgeoning field of climate change. And of course, there are more and more people who are transitioning into that field, and also from other fields. And those who simply are environmental professionals who want to expand their knowledge base or may already be working in the climate field, but there aren't very many credentials in the climate field. So it's really great to have a credential that you can take to an employer and say, look, I have a specialization in climate. Mid-career professionals and those who are aiming for the environmental professional designation through Eco Canada. Next slide, please. I'm not going to talk about this right now because, well, I am going to talk about this right now. This is actually a good segue to Rob.
Mhm.
So the 3 courses are 614, which is Science and Impacts of Climate Change. That's the first course that you take, and that is taught by Rob and Leanne, and he'll talk more about that. And then Climate Policy and Governance, and then a final course called Climate Solutions, which I teach. And it is a practical experiential course where students work in an organization that's attempting to address climate change. So they help that organization address climate change, but they also learn from what that organization is doing to address climate change. Now, Rob is involved in that first course, but he's also involved in the
Mhm.
climate solutions because he supervises some of those students for their practica. So over to you, Rob, to talk about the first course and, if you like, the last course.
Yeah,
I'm just
sure.
going to
Yeah.
jump in with a
Mhm.
question, actually, Leslie, if you
Oh,
guys have a moment. A
sure.
question here from Edith, and it's a pretty basic question, but it might expand. So, what is the main difference between the MEP program and Master of Environmental and Management program other than being fully online and blended?
Yeah, that's the main difference, but there are other
Mhm.
differences. In the MEM program, which is the Master of Environment and Management, you have the availability of doing a thesis. You can also do a major research project. You don't do a thesis in the MEP. You do that final research paper or the practicum. So those are just 4 different options for a capstone course in the 2 programs: thesis, um, major research project, research paper, and practicum. And other than that, there are definitely differences, but they do share some courses. So they're not hugely different. But I find that the difference of it being totally online is the main difference, because there are people out there who cannot leave their communities, who cannot get away from their jobs to come to campus to do the blended and on campus portion of the program. And so the students are very grateful to have the
Mhm.
ability to do a full master's degree um, online. Rob, do you
Mhm.
want to add to that?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, and to add to that, for other folks that prefer the MEM program, there are people that really enjoy that in-person learning, right? And it is still designed for folks that are working professionals. So you end up with a blended program. You're coming in for short residency periods that are about 3 weeks, or they're fairly intensive. But it does give you that little bit of that online experience and that place-based learning. The other thing is, and Leslie, maybe you can kind of confirm that this is fair to say. I mean, the MEM program is much more structured too. So you actually have like a set of courses that you take, whereas the MEP is, you got a little bit more choose your own adventure to it, right? So you can be a bit more
Yeah,
flexible in what you put in there. This being said, like a lot of master's programs, if you do a thesis in the MEM program, then you are still going to spend a good chunk of your time focusing on something that you're interested and passionate about. So, I mean, there is that. It's just when it comes to the coursework, it's a bit more structured.
yeah.
Just one little note too that I'd like to throw out there. I often get questions about what's the difference between doing a thesis and an MRP. Sometimes people would think the MRP is just kind of a thesis light version. It's not a really good way to think about it. MRP is still a lot of work and still a lot of research that's involved in there. Generally, when I talk to my students about it, the thesis goes through more of a traditional academic process. So you will do a defense at the end of it. Have a committee member, whereas the MRP doesn't have those components yet. It's still like a research project. Often it's something that'd be a bit more applied, practical, something that's looking at addressing a particular issue in a particular community, or with the collaboration with an organization or something like that. So that would be, it's where one is like a bit more academic and you're contributing to a broader body of scholarship and knowledge. The other could be considered a much more of an applied project that's looking at very much more of a specific case. So those are two little elements there. Anything to
Yeah,
add, Leslie?
yeah, I still think that, I mean, this is less true now than it used to be, but if you want to go on for a PhD, it's always a good
Yeah.
idea to take the thesis track. But many of my MEP students who do not do theses still go on to PhDs. So
Mhm.
I'm getting less comfortable with making that statement these days.
That's
Uh,
true. Yeah, I mean, and I'd agree with that. And it seems to be less and less of an issue. I mean, you could still put that footnote though um, that generally you can feel much more comfortable that broadly speaking you can get into a lot of different PhD programs if you go through that thesis and defense process, right? So yeah, I haven't really seen people experience those roadblocks, but intuitively I got to feel that there's
yeah,
some universities that still put them up. Yeah.
yeah, I still get letters from people who've gone through MEP and are in PhD
Yeah.
programs or are now out of PhD programs. So it's hard to keep making that suggestion. Okay, anything else, Rob, about SPCC? I think we can move on. Or
Oh, the
any
SPC. I haven't actually said anything about SPCC yet. That was just to answer a question about MVP. So yeah, a lot else. There's a lot of other things I can say about it. Okay,
right,
so
right. Go
uh,
ahead,
uh,
Rob.
I'll get into my
Sure.
spiel here. This is just to give you a little sense of what these courses are like. What it's like to be a student in there. One thing I should mention is that Royal Roads has been doing online education for quite some time. Before it was cool, so to speak. We during the pandemic, we transitioned, or managed to move into the online form fairly well, just because we have a lot of online programming already done. But the reason why I bring that up is because Royal Roads has been, prior to a lot of other universities doing it, experimenting with online engagement to try and make it as interactive and enjoyable as possible. Understanding that you might lose some things in that if you're not having that place-based experience. So with that, in these courses, the sort of things that you see are a lot of online discussion forums. You can also see we generally have these in-person, or sorry, I should say Zoom online sessions once a week, where folks can come in. They're labeled as office hours, but really what you're actually looking at is a place where people can gather and just chat. So often I'll have people jump into the office hours just so that they can discuss some ideas from the course, or even just listen in, right? So it gives a point of contact. And then we do a bunch of group work as well too. This is something that people are doing more and more, where they're engaging with collaborators and partners that live in various places. So it's kind of a good skill to have that little bit of engagement, and also it just it keeps you from feeling isolated. And so it's one of those things that allows you to feel like you're actually part of a class and have classmates. So this course that I teach with Leanne, oh, sorry, my just light just came off there. I'll
Yeah,
pop it on in a
maybe
second.
you're on
Yeah,
your
I
own.
know. I'll get it on in a second.
We have these automatic lights, and we're
I
always
know
just
I have to
yeah,
swing back a little bit for it to uh, get it though.
yeah. You turned it off again.
Yeah, great timing there. So this first course that I teach with Leanne Pyle, my colleague, it's called the Science of Impacts of Climate Change. And as the title suggests, we do go into the science of it. So, talking about the different sort of trends in climate change, talking about the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's scenarios, the types of pathways and futures that we might see there, climate modeling, climate data, that sort of thing. Also, spent a lot of time taking a systems perspective on climate change, looking at how you have impacts and indirect effects of those impacts and indirect effects of those impacts, as well as things like positive feedback. So how some of these systems dynamics work. For instance, climate change can create the conditions for more wildfires, which releases more carbon dioxide in the air. And so then that drives more further climate change. So you're actually seeing a bit of a positive feedback loop there. So we do get into that science bit. But I also want to stress that it's an interdisciplinary course. So we also start talking about things like vulnerable populations and use risk assessment frameworks to look at different climate vulnerabilities. We at the end of the course we get into climate justice, so we're bringing that social justice element in there, and topic that's near and dear to both mine and Leslie's heart. That we talk about the interactions between climate change and biodiversity and the sort of ecological aspects. So we do try and cover a lot in there and a really broad range of things. One of the things that's important to talk about is that you don't have to be a scientist to come in here. This was a course that is designed for a whole variety of different folks in a variety of different fields. When the students do come in there and they see a lot of the information, we don't shy away from the science. We're here to try and give you as comprehensive as an education as possible. So some students initially feel a little intimidated by it, but I want to stress right here is that what we do is we try and make this as comprehensible and comprehensive to you as possible. So teaching the science, the social science, a lot of different aspects of it. But when it comes to the assignments, the assessments aspects of it, you actually get to choose a lot of your own topics. So when we do things like the final research project, where folks will do a presentation, and we have a bit of a virtual conference, and then a report on it, you can choose something that is about climate change, the impacts, the effects of climate change. And that's something has varied. Some people have looked at things like the spiritual aspects of climate change, the psychological effects, where other folks have looked at the interactions between wetlands and climate change. And, other people would look at, the implications of new renewable energy sources and, how we can integrate some of those renewable energies into our society, that sort of thing. So, you have a whole lot of different types of objects, or sorry, a whole lot of different types of topics that you can explore in there, which means that when it comes down to like the assessment aspect of it, I generally try and reassure people that don't be intimidated by the fact that we are trying to teach you a lot of the science. This is here for your knowledge, for your building understanding. When it comes down to the actual nitty gritties of developing your assignments and ideas, you do get to explore aspects of climate change and effects and impacts that are of particular interest to you. The other thing I want to mention about these courses is that we try and use a whole variety of different tools and techniques to make the education more varied and interesting. So rather than just, for instance, writing a bunch of reports, we'll have a discussion forum where you'll post in discussions. And you'll have other projects that involve working with teams to create systems maps around climate change, so you can kind of map the direct effects of climate change and the indirect effects and impacts of the climate change, trying to understand it in terms of the social, ecological, environmental aspects. And we'll do other things in have online presentations, which involve like pre-recorded presentations, which people respond to online through a discussion forum. So that sort of thing. So we try and keep it varied, allows you to play with a variety of different skills and engage in the topic in various ways. So that's I think that's good for SPCC 614. Leslie, did you want me to talk about SPCC 616, or do you want to talk about it a little bit? Then I could talk about it from the in terms of being a host organization.
Sure, sure. So 616, basically the students write a proposal um, which involves an organization and a site supervisor. So they identify an organization that they want to work with. And this can be anything from the federal government to a local government to a First Nation to a school, an NGO, a newspaper, just about anything. I've had people um, there's such a wide variety of organizations that you can work with. And then they agree on a set of topics and objectives for that placement. And then after I approve the proposal, students go off and do their thing with that organization. While they're doing it, they keep track with a professional practice journal, and they write a report at the end of it and do a presentation about it to the class. So the class gets to take advantage of all that variety of placements. And some students have difficulty finding placements. We've never let anyone go without having a placement, but sometimes students who are from other countries are not familiar enough with the organizational landscape to be able to find a placement. So the instructors in the course step in and act as supervisors. And Rob has done this for a couple of students, more than a couple, I think, and is doing it right now. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Rob?
Sure. So from the host organization end, as you heard in my introduction, I work as a Canada Research Chair, so I do have an active research program and I collaborate with other universities. I previously worked in the Food and Agriculture Institute at the University of the Fraser Valley, so I have some good connections with folks over there. And through through my research program and through these connections and partnerships, we'll often be able to find a project that students can work on in the research world. And so these things will involve stuff like doing reviews of actually maybe I'll give you a concrete example. One project we're looking at the types of data that was out there for vertical agriculture, particularly data that related to sustainability outcomes if we were to implement vertical agriculture in a city. So we had a student that created a spreadsheet that looked at the types of resources and the work that's been done, and the types of variables and outputs and data that were produced in from that research. So that would be a type of outcome. In other cases, reports are quite useful. Recommendation reports and synthesis of literature is stuff that is very helpful for folks like us that are fairly busy and we want to synthesize some literature on a topic. Then this is generally something that students will have experience doing through the first course in the graduate certificate program. So that is another type of project that's in there. And also in one of the things that is important to mention is like I noted before, we have a lot of partners that we work with, collaborators, and these can involve academic institutions or these can involve non-academic institutions as well too, and organizations. So for instance, I was working with a group called the BC Food Web, which is an initiative that was there to give or promote research around agriculture in a way that it was trying to connect this research with farmers, producers that could use it. So trying to make it into an understandable way. And through this partnership, through this collaboration, we brought an intern in to look at the website and give some thoughts and ideas around how to restructure the website. So those sort of opportunities exist. They all involve some sort of like academic element in it, but some of them could be academic practitioner or academic, non-academic partnerships. And there are some of those sort of things that are in there. Generally, they're projects that are, kind of small and contained and, something that you could do within 80 hours.
I might
Thank you,
just jump
Rob.
in here for a second with
Yep,
we've got a question from an international environmental professional. So we
good.
do get these questions a lot. This might be a good opportunity to talk about this a little bit. They're asking, I'm a chartered environmentalist with the UK system and would
Aha.
want to get registered and recognized in Canada to practice. I want to know how best to get registered and recognized to do so.
I love this topic. I talk about this a lot. My PhD is from the UK, so I'm deeply involved in international environmental issues. My feeling about this is the very best way to jump in with both feet is to get some form of education, and the eco um, environmental professional uses both education and experience. You obviously have all kinds of experience, and so you would have a portfolio. And in terms of education, you probably also have environmental education from some great programs in the UK. But if you're interested in jumping into the Canadian environmental scene, I think there's no better way than to get a credential, especially in something like climate change, where there just aren't many credentials out there. And, um, and that gives you the academic um, credential and also is a pathway to the Eco Canada professional designation. I think that's, and I love saying about the climate change certificate that this is one of the fastest, most efficient ways to get a credential in climate change. Only 3 courses. So, I mean, our courses are not cheap, but it's not going to break the bank to just take 3 courses as opposed to taking, a full PhD or master's. Um, I hope that sort of answers your question. I think there are different pathways, but that I think is one of the best. Rob, anything to add?
I mean, that was pretty much what I was going to say too. Yeah. So
Okay,
yeah.
okay, good.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I hope that answers their question. If not, come back with more. Okay, I think we should move along now. Rob and I can talk forever, and we do. But if you're interested in any of these programs, the next few slides talk a little bit about the nitty gritty. And Angela Howlett is with us on the call. She's just not visible, and she knows all about all of these administrative matters. So she'll be able to answer some of your questions. Next slide, please. Key dates. The MEP for the fall intake actually starts on September 3rd, which is 2 weeks from now. Um, and so the application deadline has passed. But if you're keen on taking it, you can get in touch with admissions. And if you get your application materials in, there's every chance you could join the September cohort. If not, you can join the January cohort, which starts on January 6th. And then again in 2025, September 8th. The grad certificate in climate change starts on January 6th, 2025. The application deadlines are ridiculously a long way away from the starting. But I think admissions likes to be in control of this. But really, we have rolling admissions. So you can apply at any time for any of our programs. Um, and then there's a good chance you'll be in the next cohort, or if not, the one after that. So don't worry too much about the application deadlines. But because it's rolling admission, the earlier you apply, the earlier you'll get a response and know what you're doing with your life. Next slide, please. Okay, so it's an online application. It's not a terribly friendly application process, but I think you should just grit your teeth. And the admissions advisors are incredibly helpful. They're really, really helpful. So any questions, any problems you have with applying, just ask them. What you need is official transcripts. a detailed resume, your personal statement, possibly one page, maybe just a few paragraphs, why you want to take these programs, what you can contribute to the class for these programs, and 2 letters of reference. And we can answer any questions about that. But Danielle, next slide, please. So the great thing about Royal Roads is we have 2 admissions tracks, and you don't need to choose it. We choose it for you. To do standard admission, you need to meet certain qualifications. So the first is a 4-year undergraduate degree in a related field, and I am extremely flexible and open-minded about what is a related field. As we tried to indicate, environment has so many different dimensions. It is really hard for me to think of something that is not related to environment. So if you're worried about not having a related degree, I would suggest you do not worry about that. Minimum GPA of a B from a recognized post-secondary education, and at least 2 years of relevant work or volunteer experience. I'm very keen on volunteer experience being a demonstration of your motivation for the field. However, if you do not have those standard admission requirements, we have something called flexible admission. And we will let you in with some provisions. For instance, you will be required to take academic writing and critical thinking. It's a continuing ed course. It's an excellent course. I think it would be good for almost anyone to take it, whether you're required to take it or not. And you have to obtain a final grade of B for that. You usually need a little bit more relevant work or volunteer experience also. But admissions will flag whether you're a standard admission or a flexible admission when they receive your applications. Next slide, please. Thank you. So these are the requirements for flexible admission. 6 years of relevant work experience, or a combination of education and experience, required to take the academic writing and critical thinking, and you need to be aware of the English language requirements if English is not your primary language. Next slide, please. Okay, now, as you're applying, you might be interested in financial aid, and other queries that you might have about the application process. So we have a financial aid section that you can get in touch with people. There's your the website, and in terms of enrollment and admissions, there's Learn More at Royal Roads. And they can help you narrow down your program options, but also answer questions about the application process, or even connect you with other students who've taken the programs so that you can get some firsthand knowledge from them. Next slide, please. Okay, that's it. If you have any questions after you leave this webinar and are interested in either of these programs, don't hesitate to email me. Don't try to phone me, but try to email me and I will answer you. Any questions at all are welcome. Okay, Daniel, do we have questions?
We do have a few questions. I just wanted to say that this program sounds amazing. The applications at any time, the flexible admission, the opportunity to volunteer or work. I mean, it sounds amazing. But we
Thank
do
you.
have a few questions. One of them is, do you offer a postdoctoral program?
We have postdocs.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Maybe
do.
we can
Yep.
get this, we'll get you some more information on this one as soon as we get them, we get off this call, and I'll get that out to them.
Most
Sure.
of
And
them
then
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, that might be that's not a bad question for myself. Yeah, if you reach out to Leslie, she can respond with my email for questions like this because yeah, we do have postdocs, and often Royal Roads will have a call out that will get interest from people that might want to apply to both the Tri Council's postdoctoral program or the Banty postdoc. And so that would be someone puts an expression of interest and works with someone like myself or another researcher to develop an application for submitting to these programs, and hopefully if everything works out well, you can get funded, and then we can start working together. Now, that call has happened this year, but it happens on a yearly basis. And there are other postdoc opportunities that do come up, and this is generally because we do have a few Canada research chairs at research chair programs at Royal Roads, and we're often looking for money and getting grants. And some of these postdocs might be funded through sources like the Tri-Council sources, or it could be funded through other sources. So yeah, it definitely has happened through a few different things. But if you are interested in postdocs, you might want to keep your eye open for that call that comes out, and that just that closed. I want to say like just a couple months ago, I think it
Yeah,
was. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, and we're all eligible to take postdocs. So, for instance, I've had a postdoc for my recent SSHRC-funded research, and my research funds paid for that postdoc. But you can also get a postdoc and funding from the Tri-Council, as Rob said, or well, Banting's part of it. But so yes, there are lots of opportunities at Royal Roads for postdocs.
wonderful. And now someone's asking about a detailed brochure about all of these courses with the descriptions and the times and the deadlines and
Website,
all of the fees and all of that. Where would they find that on the website? Where can we point
website,
them?
Hmm.
website.
Website.
So
Oh,
go
Yeah,
to the regular Royal Roads website, and then there are programs listed, undergraduate and graduate. Click on the graduate if that's what you're looking for, and then go to the program, and all of those details are there. And if
wonderful.
you have questions about them or you can't find something, just email me.
Hmm. And we have a question from Patricia, and Patricia's asking, how do you feel about doing the certificate course first and then
Yes.
moving into the master's programs? Is there
Yep.
any benefits or detriments to doing it that way?
Yeah. The benefit is you get your feet wet, figure out if this is for you, and then, you haven't committed yourself to 30 credits and then have to drop out if it doesn't work out for you. This gives you a trial run of 3 courses, and your credits will still be transferred into the master's program. So there's no downside there. And people do it both ways. I've had people take the 3 courses and then apply to MEP. I've had people, apply to MEP and then take the certificate. It doesn't make any difference, I think. Um, and I think there are benefits both ways. I mean, if you go into the MEP first, you get a little broader notion of where your interests might lie. It might not be just climate change, but if you start with climate change, you can figure out if this kind of online learning, for instance, is appropriate for you, if you like it. So either way.
Hmm.
And
Lovely.
it's designed to be, and in fact, you can take it after MEP too, as a kind of specialization after MEP. That way you wouldn't get the credits from MEP for MEP, but it's a standalone program or within the MEP.
It sounds like there's so many benefits to this, and that RRU will really walk you through the whole process, and that you guys are really there to make sure that everyone is satisfied with everything. And that brings us to the end of our webinar. Any other questions that we may not have gotten to today, I'll make sure and forward to Leslie and Rob, and you will get an answer from that. Thank you, everyone. Any last words from our presenters for today?
Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope I'll see you in these programs. And thanks,
Hmm.
Rob.
Thank you very much, everyone. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Take
Thank you.
care.
Have a lovely day.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Danielle. Bye.
Thank you.